Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Assalatu wassalamu anbiya wal mursalin. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad Fatih lima khuliq wal khatim lima sabaq. Nasrul haq bihaq wa hadila siratul mustaqim wa ala alihi haqqidra'il azim. Alhamdulillah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh everyone. May peace be upon you wherever you are. We pray that you are in good health, well-being and iman insyaAllah in the remaining days of Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, welcome to another Sweet Ilahi online event. And this time, at this moment, we have a beautiful scholar, a blessed man that I know and I hosted him before in Singapore, Shaykh Jihad Brown. So before we ask Shaykh to begin his lecture, a bit about Shaykh Jihad Brown, his bio. Shaykh Jihad Hashim Brown is a resident scholar an assistant professor at Bayan Islamic Graduate School. He is classically trained Muslim scholar of the traditional Islamic discipline, with a focus on theology, philosophy, jurisprudence, and legal theory. He is an American scholar who had lived, studied, and worked throughout Europe and the Arab world. Shaykh Jihad complete his degree in psychology at Rutgers and attained postgraduate degrees in philosophical theology and philosophy at the University of Cambridge. He would further pursue a rigorous classical curriculum with prominent Sharia authorities in Syria and Morocco, at whose hand he has become authorized with advanced license Ijazah Hasan. Having said that, Shaykh Jihad also had studied with Shaykh Muhammad Adib Al-Kalas, Shaykh Dr. Said Ramadan Al-Buti, and Shaykh Muhammad Ali Al-Shugari, right? And as critical public intellectual, Shaykh Jihad has appeared on various media outlets such as BBC and CNN, and continues his work today as an academic consultant and writer on issues pertaining to Islam, Muslim American community, and the interplay between normative Islamic thought and the modern world. MashaAllah, there's so much that we know about Shaykh Jihad Brown. Alhamdulillah. So Shaykh Jihad will be touching on Ramadan seclusion in a pandemic, light in the darkness. Right. So without further ado, we would like to welcome Shaykh Jihad, inshallah, to begin his lecture now.
طيب اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. طيب, thank you very much, Khalid, and to the team there in Singapore for putting us all back in touch together, especially in a time like this, very special Ramadan. We don't know if there will be other Ramadans that are as extraordinary and unique as this one. The subject or the topic, the theme that you all wanted to talk about was the idea of seclusion. In the Islamic conception, we speak of khalwa, right, of literally seclusion. We have the narrative of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam seeking meaning and understanding and guidance by going up to the cave of Hira outside of Mecca. And for those of you all who have had the opportunity to go to Mecca and to climb that mountain and visit the cave of Hira, you have a physical, tangible memory of what it may have been like to be in a space like that. Seclusion, when we think of seclusion, sometimes we think of solitary confinement or loneliness and discomfort. Sometimes our seclusion is not optimal. Sometimes we can be in a crowd of people or surrounded with people that know us and we know them, but at the same time we feel like we're in a seclusion. Maybe nobody understands us, or maybe there are things that we cannot speak with anyone about. but everything that you're feeling you can bring to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There are also those who can make their seclusion amongst the crowds of people and the busyness of the street and going to and from work, but they've developed an ability, a capacity to be so present with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it's as if they're in seclusion, or they're solitary, or they're alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there are two ways of looking at the exact same situation, where we're secluded even though we're surrounded by everyone, right? And that's a bad thing, or an uncomfortable thing, or it's a very comfortable and useful thing. Or we are truly physically secluded and we don't feel comfortable with that. And or the opportunity to spend some time alone with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in seclusion. And what we do, the best way to capitalize on those moments of having a corner in your house. Maybe some of you all are in a house that's or an apartment that's not big enough, and there's too many people crammed into there. So it's less like seclusion, a spiritual seclusion, and more like being in an overcrowded jail. I'm not sure what the situation is in Singapore, if you all have a mandatory lockdown, or if people generally go out for what they need, but there's not that many places to go anyway, so you end up spending more time indoors. Many places here in the US, people are free to come and go, but not a lot is open. There's not a lot of places to go, and people are spending a great deal of time indoors, and that is the recommendation as well. If we are able to benefit from our moments of solitude and build in those moments of solitude an ability to find our way to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even when we're amid a crowd, among a large crowd. And even if you're at home and there's a lot of other people or a lot of noise in the house, we've spoken several times this Ramadan about making a space that is just your little corner of the house, a space that you can sort of burrow into and make a place where you can camp out and maybe create some focus. For those of you all who have been able to go to Ghari Hira, you know that there's a bit of a courtyard type area outside, and then there's a small little cave that's almost like a prayer niche or a mihrab. You can make a mihrab inside your house that sort of frames your focus on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We stand at night in prayer in Ramadan, or at least we try to. We work on it. And that is one of the best ways to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The night itself, the darkness itself, has the effect of providing some quietude, some quiet. Noises do tend to die down. And the darkness means that a lot of other things are not illuminated. They recede somewhat into the shadows. And it can be more conducive to contemplation, to focusing one's thoughts, right? To focusing on the particular things that you would like to meditate upon, especially when that's Allah. There's a challenge, right? When it gets dark, and it is a time that's more conducive to more thoughts. Sometimes we get thoughts that we don't want, and too many of them, and it becomes almost like a tug of war, right? Some people may face this problem. One small step that can be helpful for unwanted thoughts that you really need to dodge them. You can't really stop them, because if you stop them, that means you're thinking about them and you're giving them attention, and they're only going to come more and more. So you need to maybe dodge them by diverting your focus toward other things that are more conducive to consuming your mind. And sometimes friends, a phone call, social media, television, all of these things might be a diversion for the mind, and they're not always the most useful diversions. But we can start by making a list of alternative, more healthy diversions for when those thoughts come. Use that as a little bit of leverage to deflect them. One of the sages in the history of Islam, Awliya al-Arabi al-Daqawi, I was reading in a book of letters that he had written that someone was asking about how to divert unwanted thoughts. And he said, the first thing that you need to do when you get those unwanted thoughts is remember that you don't want them. You didn't ask for them. They are unwanted. That's the first step, right? Be conscious of that. In our contemporary settings, in, for example, cognitive behavioral therapy, they will say, try to look at that thought head on and see it as something that's coming from outside of yourself and is not, is not from you. It's not something that you want, and try to look at it as though it's a container or it's an object sitting out there on the table, right? And analyze what it is and where it comes from, but treat it as though it's at a distance from you. See it as an object that's not you or emerging from you. And of course, there's many other methods to deal with that. And one thing that I was taught by one of the scholars that I knew is that you can put your hand on your heart and say, right, the verse of the Quran. If he wished, he could get rid of you and bring a completely new creation in its place. Coming back to the idea of the framingness, the framing nature of the darkness of night, right? We want to find comfort in there. We want to find some coziness in that, right? Some place where the heart can find some rest, so we can take advantage of these quiet moments or these times of solitude and seclusion to build up that spiritual strength, so that when we're out there in the rat race of the dunya, when we're out there in the daylight, when we're out there in the busy streets or the busyness of life, we can find more comfort and more peace, because we built up that strength when it was a little bit easier, when the night was subdued. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, Inna nashi'ata al-layli ashaddu wat'an wa aqwamu qila. The standing by night, giving life to the night, is the firmest position to have and to frame the word between you and the one that you're praying to, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Many people are having to do their own recitation at home. And this is an opportunity to get more intimate with the Quran. You're not going to a masjid where someone else is reciting to you or for you, right? You're speaking to Allah. And when we recite the book of Allah, we're reciting the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reciting His speech, His kalam, which is ultimately reflections of the meanings of His attributes of kalam. And this has its ability to resonate with the heart. And what an amazing means of worship. Can you comprehend the significance of standing before the very author of the words and reciting his book back to him? That is a very high level of giving respect, showing respect to someone. You're reciting Allah's words back to him, because what words would be superior than his own to use to worship him? And in that is the communication. And every time you go to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's like pearl diving. You dive in deeper and deeper and deeper, and you come out with pearls. Some of those pearls, you've never seen those types of pearls before. It's a book that keeps on giving and giving. And the more you dig down in those opportunities to draw near to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this way, make yourself comfortable, make your space comfortable, right? Where are we now? We've entered into the last 10 days. So for any of you all who have ever followed American football, we could say that it's 4th and 10. It's 4th down and there's 10 yards to go. We have less than 10 days to go to the end of Ramadan. We start out strong and then we wax and wane during Ramadan, but we get to the final 10 and we can rally our efforts, bring it back together, gather those forces, gather that focus. What are you going to make out of the rest of Ramadan, given the circumstances that you have available to you, right? Standing by night and reciting Quran. Another engagement that involves speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a form of prayer or dua that we call munajat. So I'm trying to watch the time here, right? Munajat. Some of you all may already be familiar with the idea of munajat. Someone that you speak to about your closest secrets. Someone who you speak to in confidence, right? In quiet tones is your naji, right? Naji. And the munajat is the words that transpire between you and that other one that you're intimate with. And what we're seeking to gain by being present and mindful of the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the comfort that we spoke of, the uns. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, is your anis. He's always there. And that witness, the warmth of being with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is felt when we too are with Allah. The more we learn about Allah, that facilitates the degree that we can be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The more we engage in the worship and ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the more we become comfortable in the fashion that we engage in worship, right? Also, that facilitates the richness of that comforting solace or uns that we can have in these moments of being with Allah. And then also that communication. Sometimes we ask, what dua is better? What should I say in my prayers to Allah? Should I say the formulas that have come in the hadith or the prayers of the people of wisdom and the people of spiritual insight, or should I just say what's in my heart? The reality is each of those possibilities carries with it its own qualities of benefit that will bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is a barakah of framing your prayers in a way that is in alignment with the way that the Prophet ﷺ spoke and asked of Allah. And there is a nearness and a sincerity and an honesty in just speaking from your own heart. Because Allah is there. Allah hears everything. Allah sees you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right, in the statement of the Prophet, He's looking at your heart first. Right? He sees everything, but it's your heart that He's concerned with. What are we trying to achieve in our seclusion? What will bring light to that subdued quietness and dimness? We want to, right? We want to put our own spiritual light and generate that, right? Generate that like a motor or a dynamo so it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? We generate our own spiritual light. Within that dimness of the seclusion, right? By being intimate with Allah, by speaking with Allah and finding that comfort there, letting it come from the heart. We want to get to a point where we embody the truth of the verse, مَا جَعَلَ اللَّهُ لِرَجُلٍ مِّن قَلْبَيْنِ فِي جَوْفِهِ. Allah has not made for a man two hearts in his chest. Same for a woman, okay? Any person. Allah hasn't put two hearts, meaning two spiritual hearts, in a person's center. There's only one spiritual heart. And that one, we want to make it for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of those other relationships that we have that are important to us, and definitely our hearts are directed toward, we want that to be a reflection of that love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We want our attachment to other people that we're attached to be coming from that attachment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There be some footing in common, some common footing of a relationship between us, that person, right, in the gaze of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But now we're coming back to it. Can we make these times and spaces where we turn and give away our hearts to Allah, speaking intimately to Him? Our recitation of Quran can be a munajat, and we can make our own munajat by speaking to Allah about how we feel, speaking to Allah about how we know Him to be in regard to how we feel, right? Oh Allah, I feel unworthy, but you are so generous and you don't keep anyone out. You let everyone in. And I'm one of those people who deserves to be shut out, but I have hope that you'll let me back in because you know that I love you and I love your messenger. And you know better than me what I need in this moment. Here are the things that worry me. Here are the things that I'm concerned with. And I know that you are the only one to go to, right? Here is an approach, right, in speaking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That increases that uns and comfort. And Allah will meet your honesty with His comfort. There are also the texts, the books that have been written with the munajat entreaties or supplications of some of the early scholars. And a number of them have been translated into English. In fact, a lot of them. So there is a beautiful munajat of Ibn Aliwa, Ahmed al-Alawi al-Mustaghanimi, that was translated into English. And that's one in the Arabic. I was doing it in the Arabic for many years before I found that it had been translated to English. The munajat at the end of the Hikam of Ibn Ata'illah Secondary are translated in English. When we visited you all many years ago in Singapore, we actually studied a book that Khalid wanted us to study together about letting go of managing one's own affairs. Many of those items in that book are also in the form of munajat. So you have the munajat of Ibn Ata'illah Secondary. There's also a translation of a Dawr al-Awwal, which is it's not a Dawr al-Awwal, but it's a munajat of Muhyiddin ibn Arabi that was translated. And the Paulist Press had published the translation of the Hikam al-Ata'iyya, of the Hikam of Ibn Ata' many years ago, with a double book. So there was an Indian scholar of Persian descent named Khawaja Abdullah al-Ansari, and that edition of the Hikam had Abdullah Ansari's munajat in it as well. as well as the munajat of Ibn Atta. So one could make time in the night during this Ramadan in seclusion, take advantage of that and read some of those munajats. We're getting closer to Laylatul Qadr, all right? We're drawing down on it. And any of these odd nights could be Laylatul Qadr. When did you start Ramadan? All right. When did someone else start Ramadan? Did different groups in the same city, right, start at different times? When it comes to Laylatul Qadr, none of that matters. Right? There are some narrations that point toward the 27th night. Is it your 27th or is it their 27th? Laylatul Qadr is hidden. It could be any odd night, and we can even be unaware of the odd nights. There's a reason why Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, is hidden. The reason why it's hidden is so that you'll go out and look for it. What is being asked of you? To hit it on the head like a hammer on the head of a nail and get it just right? No. What's being asked of you is to look for it. You don't look for something unless you want it. So knowing what it is, better than 1,000 months. There will be people who will be released from the punishments that they deserve on the night of Laylatul Qadr, right? There is much to gain on that night, much progress to be made in the path to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to strengthen one's own position as servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this night. But the most beautiful thing about it is wanting it, to knowing that it is of such immense value and making an effort to find it. Not finding out that that night that you went out, that was definitely Laylatul Qadr, and someone says that they knew someone, right, who heard from someone that they saw something happen in the sky, and so that was a sign that this was a... No, just go out and look for it, right? Look for it on the odd nights. Look for it on the even nights. Just look for it. That's why it's hidden. The Sa'atul Ijaba on Fridays. Is it when the person giving the Friday sermon sits down between the two khutbahs, or is it after Asr, or is it immediately after the Jummah prayer, but after the Jummah prayer ends in which masjid? It's hidden. And it's hidden so that you'll look for it. Even the greatest name of Allah, different scholars have had offered different clues as to what might be the greatest name of Allah, but it's also hidden. And why is it hidden? So that you'll look for it by going through all of the names of Allah, always turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and going back and reading Ayatul Kursi over and over again, because maybe in that is the greatest name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is a very important and deep wisdom in the hiddenness of things, so that you stay awake, so that you stay alert, you continue to seek that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we could just call it, or we had some calculations that tell us exactly what it is, people would stop looking for it. And the ibadah is in the looking for it, in the prayers, in the du'as, in the adhkar. The ibadah, the heart, the lub of the core of the ibadah in those things is turning to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You direct yourself in the direction of Mecca. You bring your attention onto Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You make an effort to deflect interrupting thoughts. And you keep making that effort. No matter how many distracting thoughts come, you keep making your effort, and you get stronger and stronger and stronger, just like lifting weights or doing some type of exercise. You keep going out and you get better and better at it. The same thing with the deflecting thoughts. It's not all going to happen at once, and there's not going to be some windfall opening that we can rely on. They may come, but we shouldn't be expecting them. Once I remember after a Hadra gathering on a Friday in Damascus, Shaykh Mustafa Turkmani said, we make dhikr of Allah because He told us to, not because we're seeking something in return. So we do what we're supposed to do, right? We hand up to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala what we're dedicating to Him, and we leave the results to Him, okay? A watched pot never boils, right? So we just do what is supposed to be done and look for the pleasure in just doing what's supposed to be done. Not necessarily watching for, did the results come or the results didn't come yet, or when are they going to get here? Motivate yourself, shape yourself, massage your orientation into a framework where you are finding the joy and the benefit and the comfort and the uns in, as they say, the journey, not looking to whether or not we're there yet. They say about going to the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you see the people on the Umrah and Hajj in Mecca hanging from the doorstep of the Kaaba, as if that is the doorstep of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is the house of Allah, and there is the door of the Kaaba. So it is exceedingly symbolic, right? And it is a sunnah of the Muslims to hang from that doorstep. And it is symbolic of being on the doorstep of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the metaphorical door of Allah, because Allah does open. It may not be a physical door, and it could be a physical door, but He gives you openings in your life. You ask Him to accept you into His pleasure, right? Into His acceptance. But when that moment comes, or to make a change for you, but when that moment comes, it's not under your control. But what is under your control is being where you're supposed to be, camped out on His doorstep. And you say to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in your intimate entreaties, in your intimate conversations with Him, Allah, I would like you to open that door. I need you to open this door for me, or open this door and let me in to the comforting nearness to you. But until you do that, I'm going to be right here, because that's all I can do, camped out on your doorstep. And I'm happy to stay here for as long as it takes. So orient yourself to finding your pleasure in knocking at the door, sitting at the door of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because, right, that's where it's all happening. Just like the hiddenness of Allah, the opening of the door is not guaranteed for you. Okay? Seeing Allah, right, is not guaranteed for anyone. Allah make us amongst those who see Him on the Day of Judgment. Allah make us amongst those who reach the maqam of ihsan and taste that beauty in this life, where we find that although in this life we don't see Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with our eyes, we feel His presence with the insight of our hearts, and it's as if we are seeing Him with our eyes. These are all things that can be achieved. But just like fine food, sometimes our palate is not very refined, right? And the better food, the healthier food, the more quality dishes, we don't appreciate them. And we'd rather have something quick, or something that has all types of chemical flavoring and things like that, because our palate is not very refined. But the more refined our palate becomes, let's see if we can stay connected here. Looks like battery runs low. Right? The more we can refine our spiritual palate, the more we'll feel inclined to engage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in these more subtle ways. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is majestic and powerful and conquering and overwhelming, qahirun fawqa ibadihi, but He's also latif, all right? He's also very subtle. So we need to put in effort to develop these things. And sometimes in our lives, in one person's life, the journey is not always a straight line. You may make progress during one phase of your life and fall away for whatever reasons, because of new tests that Allah has sent you. And they're tests that you hadn't been faced with before. And they are going to overwhelm you just like the challenges earlier on in your life, or when you were younger or less experienced. You would be overwhelmed with things that today, if someone complained of those same types of challenges, you would laugh. Right? It's easy, right? That's grade school stuff. It's easy when you're not in grade school, and you're not in grade school anymore. So there has to be new ones. So you may fall away because that maqam, or that strength of being an adept as a worshipper, being adept at the worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That was for a different period of your life, and it was for a different maqam, a different set of circumstances. And Allah is going to bring new circumstances upon you. And it may knock you off your feet, right? It may knock you down, right? Like a big wave in the ocean, right? When it hits you, it could knock you down and flip you upside down so you don't know which way is up and which way is down, which way is left and which way is right. You get disoriented. But the important thing is that the one thing that you don't forget is that connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you need to reach for it, and you need to grab for it, because it's not your swimming that's going to get you out of that riptide. It's not your swimming ability that's going to get you out from those waves. It's going to be your holding on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? That is the thread that will help you get out of this new labyrinth that He's thrown you into. And it's disconcerting, it's unsettling, all right? It's hazy. When you're in the middle of the forest, it is much, much more confusing when you're in there. When we think of a forest in our minds, we're looking from, 10,000 feet. We're looking as though we're flying a drone over the forest when we remember things in the past, or we envision things in the future. It's as if we have this 20/20, 30,000 foot high vision. But when you're in it, we can look at the ocean from a distance, but when the waves are crashing on you, and they're not coming in nice rows like this, one is coming this way and another one is coming sideways, right? And then the undertow is sucking you out from underneath, and you're being flipped around, and you've just inhaled all that salt water and sand through your nose, right? And your lungs are not working correctly, and you're tired. It's not the same as we conceptualize it in the mind. So go easy on yourself. Know what you want. Know what your intention is. What you want is Allah. The poet said, and I believe it was Sidna Abdul Ghani an-Nabusi, Habibi Mu'anis. My beloved brings solace and comfort to my heart. Fi qalbi nazal. And he's taken up residence in my heart. In the other qasida, laka fi qalbiya darun wa alayka al-qalbu da'ir. You have a dar, a home, a residence in my heart, and my heart is busy and preoccupied with you. It's as if my heart turns upon the remembrance of you. Back to Sidna Abdul Ghani, he says, my beloved is a comfort and a solace for me, and in my heart he has descended or alighted or set up camp. In my heart he has set up camp or alighted. فَأَزَلَ الْغِيَارِ. And by that taking up residence in my heart and the solace that he gives, he has erased the thought and the preoccupation of all other than him. take those means to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to join with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to take advantage of these moments of solitude in this very, very unique and special Ramadan. And we may not have, Ramadan so far may not have gone as we planned. We may not have seen or done all of those things we set out to do, and what Ramadan went exactly as you had planned, right? And don't think about Ramadan 10 years ago, Ramadan when you were in your 20s, Ramadan when, right? MashaAllah, those were opportunities to build who you would become for then. And now is now. But here we are reminding one another that we have the last 10 to go. So let's rally the troops. And who are the troops? Who are the soldiers according to Imam al-Ghazali? My feet and my legs and my hands and my arms and my eyes and my ears and my tongue, right? And all of that, rally those troops together, right? Around the king. And who's the king? The heart, which ultimately controls those limbs. Sometimes those limbs are unruly and a little bit wild and a little bit rowdy, and it's difficult for the king to keep control of them all, but the king gets stronger, right? And the limbs become more disciplined. We have to put in the time, shay'an for shay, and come back to it. This is a life's work. This is a life's journey, right? It's not over until it's over. And when is it over? Right? Only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows. So let's rally and let's see what we can do to make the most out of the last days left in this Ramadan, and we'll take from it in accordance with the rizq, with the sustenance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has measured out for us for the year 2020 or 1441, that He determined and designed before we were even born. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala measured out the spiritual rizq that would come to us during this season. Right? So there's no reason to fret. There is no reason to worry or be anxious, have anxiety or depression or remorse afterwards. You will take something good out of this Ramadan. So focus on it and go for it. And Allah give you much strength. We'll draw it to a close there. That's about my 40-minute mark. So let's see what Khalid and the crew want to do with us. Allah bless you. Allah give you many openings in this Ramadan. Keep you all safe and healthy and strong. If any of us do get the coronavirus, we ask Allah to spare us from that. Allah give you the strength of heart and the strength of lungs and the strength of body to persevere through it, and know that that too, right, is a lesson, training program from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So always know that your moment is designed and tailor-made just for you by Allah, and take out of it what you can. And you will only know, right, what that is when it's done. And that's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala designed or portioned out for you for your rizq in that. So stop fretting over the things that didn't come to pass or didn't go, right, the way you had hoped that they would in the past, because we're being anxious about something that was never gonna be. Right? It was never going to be. It may have been a good design when it hadn't happened yet, a good intention, a good goal when it hadn't happened yet, but then we discover what's in the qada and qadr of Allah when it becomes, right, the moment that just passed. And there's no reason to be anxious about the past anymore. Barakallahu feekum. Sayyid Khalid, what's next on your program?
Now we are having the Q&A, the question and answer session.
Okay.
Yeah, inshallah, Shaykh, is a beautiful, profound lecture. Thank you very much. Yeah. Shaykh, the first question that I received is that, Shaykh Jihad, I do not have any azkar. And during these pandemic times, I just zikir, subhanallah, subhanallah, subhanallah. Is there a proper azkar that I should read? And which azkar is good for me to read for a beginner?
Subhanallah. That's a good question. The baqiyat as-salihat, subhanallah walhamdulillah, la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar, subhanallah walhamdulillah wa la ilaha illallah wallahu akbar. Making istighfar. The Prophet ﷺ said that he asked Allah to forgive him 100 times every day. So if he does it 100, right, we should be doing it 200 times or more. You know, as many as we can. You can look in the book Riyadh al-Salihin, the Gardens of the Righteous, and in the sections about adhkar, there are some adhkar from the Sunnah. For something more advanced than that, but still very straightforward, I recommend the Hizb al-A'zam of Mullah Ali al-Qari. It's divided into 7 days a week, 7 days for 7 days of the week, and there are awrad, and all of them are actual du'as from the Prophet ﷺ, and maybe we can share that title with Khalid later, and he can make it available to everyone.
Inshallah. Thank you, Shaykh. Inshallah. The next question, Shaykh. I'm a single mother. I have 4 kids with me. Under these pandemic times in home, I was very busy because all my children are very young. And I get tired by the night after we break our fast. And sometimes I do even miss Tarawih. And I felt that I have not achieved what I'm supposed to be because we are always at home in this Ramadan. Do you have any advice for me or anything that can inspire me?
Definitely, Allah bless the mothers, and especially the single mothers. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was raised by a single mother. Right? Subhanallah. And is hard for mothers, right? Especially a single mother. But Allah, have some comfort that Allah is giving you an exchange. So yes, you want to engage in more ibadat, you want to do something, but you're doing something that is extremely important, and that's raising these believers. And yes, when you get worn out and you're driven to raise these kids, keep everything together for the right intentions, the beautiful intentions of taking care of these children, right? In a way that's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and raise some believers. Know that this is a phase in your life, just like you're witnessing phases in their life. Allah is going to give you a great deal of nur and light in exchange for every ounce of exhaustion. When your intention is healthy and balanced for Allah in the duties and things that you're doing, you are generating light in your account with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In every ounce of that exhaustion, it is ibadah. Don't break yourself up that you're not doing 20 raka'at along with all of these other duties, right? And there's a lot of other people who are in similar situations. Do what you can, even though it's small, maybe something small. Have a little small thing that you can handle, right? And don't worry about it. It's just a phase in your life and a phase in their life. Say it.
Inshallah. Thank you, Shaykh. Beautiful. Next question is, Shaykh Jihad, I have anxiety ever since the pandemic because my mother, not mother, sorry. I have a volatile environment in my home, and through that I have anxiety every now and then under this pandemic situation, even in Ramadan, because it triggers all the time. Because my father is always mental abuse me. I need your advice. How do I go about with such situation I'm in? I'm already reaching out to some local hotlines for advice, but spiritually, what should I do with myself and my mental state? I felt that I'm losing Ramadan this year.
Okay, so Khalid, explain to me what the question was from you one more time. Tell me what the person is asking.
The person is saying that she is in a volatile environment. Her father is always mentally abuse her.
Okay.
And she's always trying her best not to be in anxiety. But because of the mental abuse that she always had, and they couldn't go anywhere because you have to be in the same house. So she always trigger. Her anxiety is always trigger. So she's asking you that, how do I go about spiritually? Because she already reaching out to some local hotline about dealing with mental state. But
Right.
now she wanted to know how is it that spiritually she can work out on herself. Yeah.
Tayyib. So what I've understood from the question is that the sister is already seeking professional help that is available in Singapore. So she's not asking us what to do in general.
Yeah, I
One,
think she.
see what resources are there to get out of that situation, because you don't deserve to be in that situation, right? Don't let anyone convince you that you deserve to be in a volatile or abusive situation, okay? But Allah has put you in a situation. You're working on ways to practically get out of that. So then our advice here is what to do while you're still stuck there. We're all making dua. Everybody listening right now is making dua for you to give you relief. You can ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give you that release and relief and a way out. But what I would say is, from that position of your anxiety, ask Allah for what you want and what you need to bring some calm. Look at your situation, what you can change and what you cannot change. And in that prayer, right, that famous non-Muslim prayer, right, look at those and embrace those things that you cannot change, and know that there is some wisdom behind it. And that so long as you're in this situation and you haven't found the way out yet, you know that you can grow from this. It's unpleasant, it shouldn't be happening, but it is. And know that your acceptance of it, while it's not changing and getting better, and knowing that this is what happens, and I'm hoping for the best, I'm taking means for the best, but so long as it's going, right, your acceptance can help to reduce that anxiety. Look at it, step away from yourself, step away from the situation and look at it and know that you don't deserve it. It is unfortunate. You're doing what you can to get out, and realize that it is going to, or stands the chance of, making you a stronger person, right? And what remembrance of Allah you can bring to yourself in the middle of the chaos. See what you can do to remember Allah in the most difficult moments, the most challenging moments, when you would expect that you would forget about everything because of the stress. See what you can do to slip in a little consciousness, right? Smile in the face of all of it, and know that you're in a battle. It's just harder than other types of battles, because who exactly really is the enemy here? Okay? It's not as clear as we would all like it to be, or think we can jump to conclusions about. Where is the battlefield? What are the weapons? It's not clear like combat would be clear, but it is a battle. And can you be that person who walks into the battle with a smile on their face, right? And fights, right? Fights for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fights for their relationship. And whatever you can slip in, right? Slip that in. And leave it to Allah to bring the relief to your heart.
Inshallah.
Maybe we can talk more another time, inshallah.
Yeah, thank you, Shaykh. It's beautiful the way
Allah
how
make it
you
easier for you. Allah make it easier.
Ameen. Okay, the next question
Know
is
that
from,
you're not alone. All over the world, people are suffering right now because they're stuck in quarantine, you know, with people who are not good companions.
yeah, may Allah ease them. Yeah. Okay, the next question is talking about the whole situation of what we are facing today. This person, he himself had been infected with COVID-19, and right now he's in hospital, but watching you live. And he said that the last remaining days of Ramadan is coming to an end. And he said, I feel so sad that I accepted that of the takdir of Allah, the fate of Allah, that I've been infected with this virus. I giving up myself to whatever the outcome will be. I accepted it, but it's just that I feel so sad that Ramadan is coming to an end, and I will not be able to be with my family.
Mm.
And what advice you have for me? Yeah, advice he asking for. Yeah.
Depending on what stage of the recovery you're in from the infection will depend on what you're able to do. Remember that you can make remembrance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in your mind when you're able, right? And as much as you're able. What to do, right? It's unfortunate, and I feel for you. And inshallah, Allah bring you back to a speedy recovery. You're doing what you have to do to get this recovery done and to keep your family safe, right? Make dua for your family. Make dua for yourself. Communicate with Allah. Take advantage of this loneliness and this solitude to let your heart, which doesn't need to move, doesn't need to use your lungs, right? Your heart can be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? Take advantage of that, this solitude and loneliness, and maybe do as much think dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as you can, so that if Allah brings you through, and inshallah Allah will bring you through and bring you back to your family, you can be even stronger, and you're going through the exact Ramadan that you were supposed to go through in 2020. This was tailor-made for you because Allah wants something from you, right? So be awake to what Allah is doing with you and accept it. Don't wish for a Ramadan that was never going to be your Ramadan. This is our Ramadan. So engage with it. Don't be lost wishing and dreaming about things that were never going to be. Engage with this one. And as unpleasant as it might be, as unspiritual as it might be, find the spirituality in that. Spirituality does not come on the most idealistic of terms, right? And Allah can make any moment, a beautiful moment. Tayyib.
Yeah,
Allah give
inshallah.
you help,
Ameen.
strength soon. Keep the rest of your family safe.
Ameen. Inshallah. Thank you, Shaykh, for that advice. The next question, Shaykh. Salam Shaykh Jihad. You mentioned about making munajat with Allah and spending time in contemplation at night. Could you advise us how to engage in deeper intimacy during contemplation? How can we build mental and spiritual inner fortitude through contemplation? Yeah.
By doing it, just like lifting weights and exercising, if you're not someone who is familiar with sports or physical fitness and stuff like that, go out there and get a sport, do some physical fitness, right? And build up those muscles over time, and know that's the exact same thing you'll do with your adhkar, okay? There's different specific detailed methods, but in general, each time you sit down or you stand or you walk and you engage in your remembrance, you'll lose track. Don't get upset with yourself when you lose track. You slip away, you daydream, and then you realize, oh, I was trying to make dhikr. And now I've been thinking I've worked out all of these things about my bank account and my finances and my investments and the stock exchange. And I also, discovered a cure for cancer and all of these things. Don't get upset with yourself. Just calmly go back to thinking about. Start from the meaning, contemplating the meaning. What you want is your heart to be fixed on Allah. The more you learn about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for example, studying the 99 names of Allah is an excellent way to go. The more that will help you focus on Allah. One way, medium way to get there first is focusing on the meaning of the adhkar that you're saying. Keep coming back to that. Keep coming back to that. Even if you have to, keep coming back 100 times, right? In a single sitting, and do it each time. And I guarantee you, if you do that, you will have more and more strength of focus for longer periods of time. And you'll find that that will happen, right?
Inshallah. Thank you, Shaykh. We left two questions. So this is the second last question. Shaykh, you said a watch pot never boils. You also mentioned before that sometimes Allah don't give us what we want because He loves to hear His slave calling to Him. What can we do after making istihara, dua, prayer, and effort? We are having anxiety on the outcome of what we seek from Allah. Should we focus on growth and intimacy with Allah while waiting what is to happen? Yeah.
Okay, so explain the question to me, Khalid.
So he's saying that you're mentioning about sometimes Allah doesn't give what you want, and because of that, Allah loves to hear His slave calling Him.
Maybe.
And and then he said, what can we do after istihara and the effort that we had put in, and also we had the anxiety while knowing what is the outcome. So should we focus on our growth in that moment, not knowing what is going to happen, and build that relationship with Allah Subhanahu wa Taala? Yeah, that's what it means.
Sometimes you have to let go. Sometimes you have to let go of what you want, and just wait and see what Allah wanted, and trust that Allah has something designed for you that may not be what you had imagined. Because the way things turn out is not, think about all the times in your life that you had your mind, you had some image of what it was going to be like in your mind, and when you got there, of course, it was totally different than what you had thought. But then you got used to it and accustomed to it, and maybe it turned out to be better than what you had imagined. Or it added a whole new dimension to your reality that you were not even anticipating. Remember, see those patterns in your life and learn from them for these moments that are yet to come. And sometimes you just have to let go of the ideal that you really were convinced, because in conflict management, you're not supposed to come to the negotiation table with only one option or two options. You're supposed to be able to offer multiple sets of options to everybody that will also work for you, and so it's the same thing with going to Allah, right? He's not going to make it play out the way you had it in mind. Sometimes you have to let go and just accept or look to understand what Allah is unfolding. And it's almost like resistance to the universe, right? Or to the terms that Allah has set for the universe, right? We're resisting it because we're insisting it should be this way. And then when we're doing that, when we're resisting and insisting, we're missing out on a whole lot of good, a whole lot of subtleties. We don't see any of the subtleties. Sometimes you just have to submit and go into a state of harmony and let Allah do the driving. Try that. See what comes up. And Allah knew exactly what you wanted. So that's recorded. No one's going to forget. Allah's not going to forget what you wanted. Right? It may show up. But if it doesn't seem to be coming, and I know that I'm doing the best I can be doing, then let go.
Inshallah. Inshallah, thank you. Beautifully explained to us. May Allah preserve you. This is the last question coming from a non-Muslim. He says, I watched your lecture and I'm very intriguing in knowing Islam. And he's asking, what's your advice for him? What should he be doing for him to know more in depth about Islam?
Whether you're a Muslim or you're not a Muslim, you're still living in the same reality. You're still living under the gaze of Allah. And so the same thing. Don't think that the path that you're following is a path that you can control, right? You have some degree of control over your own choices, but Allah has a design for you. Okay, and the path, you don't know what that path is going to look like around the bend. So if I was to say you must go and read this, or you must go to this place, these might be good things to do, but ultimately Allah has something in store for you. And Allah bless you, and Allah show you the way. I would say the most important thing is to listen and learn. There are so many ways to get to know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to get to know about Islam. And lots of people in ways have a whole lot of things to show you and give you and tell you, right? Know that your ultimate instructor is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And read what you can read, listen to what you can listen to, right? See if you can find Muslims who resonate as good people with you where you're at in your journey right now. Spend time with them, you know, get the experiences you can, and remember that Allah is the only thing that is perfect in reality, right? And then after him, the Messenger Muhammad alayhi salatu wasalam. Islam is a beautiful system, but the truth of its beauty will only be revealed to us to the degree that we have good and balanced understanding of it. And that's a life's journey, right? And it also returns to the success of Allah. And know that Muslims aren't perfect, right? Muslims are showing up to this hospital that is Islam, and we're all sick and got broken arms, and I actually broke my toe last week. One of the shelves of my library fell on it while I was looking for a book, right? We got broken toes and broken arms, and we're all sick, and some of us know that we're coming to the hospital because we need help, and some of us think we're the hospital, right? Or we're the doctors. We're all trying, it's just we know where the hospital is, that's all. You know? And so know that Muslims aren't perfect, and there are people who are struggling and trying, but they know where they're trying to get their good health from, right? They know where they're trying to get their healing from. And some Muslims are better at getting better and getting more healing than others, you know, but we're all trying. We're all children of Adam, and we're all trying to get back to the original source where we all came from, and find that balance and harmony that comes with submission to the ultimate design of the Creator. And I wish you the very best, right? And Allah show us the way.
I mean, thank you, Shaykh. With this, we have ended the Q&A, and that means we have ended this session online. So before we leave, let's say thank you to you, Shaykh. May Allah preserve you, and we hope to continue working with you, maybe online in the future again, inshallah. So before we leave, can you make a closing dua, inshallah, for all of us?
Well, we're grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is beautiful and perfect and majestic, and we ask Him to accept us into His presence. We're grateful to Him for sending to us the person of His Messenger, alayhi salatu wasalam, our blessed Prophet Muhammad, and Allah bless him and his family, and give them peace and those who follow. Allah bless the organizers of this session. Allah bless all of the people and their families who listened. Allah give you all openings in this very, very special and unique Ramadan. And Allah give us to be with Him, to see Him with the eye of our hearts, with the insight of our spiritual hearts. Allah give us to be in harmony with the designs, Ya Allah, that you are making for this cone, so that we can let go of worry and rumination and depression about the past. We can let go of being anxious and worried and concerned about the future. And we can be at peace with the circumstances, and give us the strength to work and to put good energy forth in making the
Amen.
best choices and the best efforts and the best mubadarat and taking initiatives, right, with our choices and with our actions. And we ask Allah to put tawfiq and success into those actions and bring a lot of warmth and beauty. Not too much warmth this summer, right, but just enough, right, the right atmosphere to our homes. Allah bless you.
I mean, thank you, Shaykh.
Give you a beautiful iftar. We're getting close to iftar here.
Okay, you shouldn't take your time, man. Thank you very
Catch up
much.
with you.
Yeah, see you
Take
again.
care.
Assalamu
Thank
alaikum,
you.
Shaykh. We love you,
Alaikum
Shaykh.
salam. Take care. We love you, and Allah loves you all.
Amin,
Take
amin. Yang you
Y'all
too.
have a beautiful day.
Thank you,
Assalamu
Shaykh.
alaikum warahmatullah.
Salam. Dah, finish. So, inshallah, later we're gonna have Ustaz Amin Yusof at 5:30, and then tonight the same classes on every Sunday night with Sheikh Abdul Aziz, the 40 principle of the Deen from Ihya Ulumuddin. And tonight we're going to talk about patience, right? So inshallah, see all of you tonight, this evening and tonight, inshallah.